Imagine a typical street fight on a Friday night when everyone's smashed. You typically see some artist fat geezer called like Steve or something, who's not even paying attention to what's going on around him. And some bloke will come running in, do something like that. That's usually how they throw punches, right? And what's happening in that scenario is the person coming in with the punch is putting all their weight into this massive telegraph gunslinging, I don't even know what you call it, kind of right hook. Coming off balance is the main issue with novice boxers. They'll come forward and their weight will be coming off this back foot, it'll be transferring over to the front. They'll be coming off balance. The punches aren't really doing anything either. And that's because the weight distribution isn't correct. When the weight distribution is correct, 60% at least in this back foot, then you usually get a more of a proper, precise punch without them coming off balance. So if they miss, like the Saturday night brawler probably would, then they still won't come off balance if they're punching correctly. The weight distribution's right. Even if I miss this punch, I'm not gonna fall off balance. So when we're punching, we just want to think of our arms as just whips. So any punch we throw, they've got to be loose, relaxed, like this. That's how we're punching. We're not coming off balance and we're not tensing up. The more you tense up, the slower it will be, the less power it will have, and the more likely that you're going to come off balance and get caught yourself. So we maintain the weight on this back foot throughout the duration of the punch, and we're just whipping them out, like so. We'll go through each individual punch as these series of lessons go on, but for now, I just want you to know that you need to stay on balance throughout the duration of every type of punch. So even if you do miss it, you're still going to be in an advantageous position to carry on throwing punches or defend. This lesson is going to be covering how to throw the jab correctly. The jab is by far the most important weapon in your arsenal. It's the most useful punch in boxing. And that's because it's essentially like a little pistol. You're using it to line up the big rocket launcher, the right hand. If you can just get your range with the jab, like so, then you can set up other shots. When teaching the jab, I like to I'll reference a video I've watched from Larry Holmes when he explains the jab. He has probably one of the best jabs in boxing. And that is that the jab isn't a punch. The jab is a slap.
You don't punch with a jab, you slap him with a jab.
And what it means by this is your arm is like it needs to be as much of a whip as it can be when it comes to the jab. You need to just be touching. It don't need any power. You're just finding where your opponent is. You're figuring out how close you are to be able to land those other bigger shots.
What fighters do today, they do like this. That's okay, right? Mm-hmm. But if a fighter would do like this, loosen up, it don't hurt, do it? That's fine.
The best thing about this is if you've got a really good jab, then these are still scoring shots. You're just whipping out this punch, you're in, you're out, and you're finding your range. You're figuring out how close you need to get before you land those bigger shots. There are probably 100 different variations of the jab. Of course, there's jabs like this, the stiff jab with a bit more power behind it. There's the whip, as Larry Holmes was saying, the slap, nice and fast. There's a jab to the body. There's jabbing from different angles, coming up through the guard like a screw shot. There's all different kinds of jabs. Play around when you're shadow boxing with all these different variations. The more you can vary up your jab, the more you're going to confuse your opponent. And the more you jab, generally, the more fights you're going to win, because it's such a useful shot that you can just throw all day. It's so easy to throw, especially when you get this slap sort of whipping motion. It takes no effort, nice and fast. Brilliant shot. In the first lesson of this punching techniques module, I talked about how everything comes off rotation. Every shot comes off the rotation of your hips. Every defense comes off this rotation. However, the jab is the only exception to this. A lot of people coach jabs and they're trying to like rotate it as if it's a left hook. Yes, okay, fully extend it, but you don't need to think about this when you're jabbing. You need to think more about your general shape when it comes to jabbing, because the more your shoulders forward, the less you're going to need to rotate for that jab anyway. So it's more of just an arm punch, what we call an arm punch. It's not coming off your body as much. You're just snapping it out. When we're jabbing, we're trying to bring the front of our delt here right up to our chin, like so. And this is where it's landing. The arm is fully locked. And again, we're kinking the wrist. I like to think of the jab as all I'm doing is just turning my knuckle over like that. That's the movement. And you're just fully extending. Like so. But then also remembering that Larry Holmes whip. It's just nice light tap. You're tapping, but you're just doing it quickly. You're finding the range.
If I tighten up, it won't be as quick. So I keep it loose, and I hit you from loose, and when I come out, I turn here, and I catch you with the knuckle part. That's the part I hurt.
Typically, novice boxers will come over the front foot when they're jabbing. Their weight will come forward, and they'll try reach their opponent like this. They'll try reach him. This is something I had a problem with for many of my first few fights, was I was trying to reach with the jab like so. But you don't need to do this. Everything comes off your feet, as we've talked about in the footwork fundamentals. Your feet move first, you get into range, and then you can land your jab. You don't try and land your jab and leave your feet behind. The weight distribution stays the same, and I'm just in and out. Like so. And that is how you throw the jab. So we've talked about the jab and how it lines up your other shots, particularly the backhand. Now the backhand, or the straight or the cross, is probably the most uncommon punch to be performed correctly in boxing. And it's probably the hardest punch to throw. When it comes to throwing the cross, the weight has to stay back. Just like in the jab, you see a lot of people, they come right over this front foot when they throw the backhand. They come right off balance and they leave themselves open for a counter left hook. So when we're throwing the backhand, again, we're getting our feet in the right range using that jab. And then once we're in the right range, we keep the weight back throughout the duration of the punch, and we're just whipping it out like so. Obviously, this left hand is going to be here. It's going to be high. So I'm covered when I'm throwing the punch. Also, you'll notice as my arm is fully extended, the front of my delt is, again, right up against my chin. My chin's tucked underneath, and that defends me from shots coming from this side. My arm's fully extended, and again, my wrist is kinked, and that allows me to land right on the knuckles. The main things when it comes to throwing the cross or the backhand are maintaining that weight on the back foot, of course, but really thinking about your arm as a whip. The more you can think of it as a whip, and the more relaxed you can keep it, then the better and more effective it will be. The faster it will get there, the harder it will be for your opponent to be able to see it coming, and the more damage it will do. So as it lands on impact, then your arm stiffens up. But before, your hand needs to be like pretty much open, nice and relaxed like this. Your elbows just sat on your stomach like so, and it just comes out from there. It doesn't drop and then come out. It doesn't go down as you jab and then come out. That's the common mistake you'll see. It goes straight from the chin, straight to landing, and then straight back to the chin. You notice my weight is staying on the back foot. I'm pivoting on the back. I'm staying on the balls of my feet as well. I'm not coming over onto my toe. When it comes to the back foot, I know someone's weight distribution is wrong when they're throwing the backhand because they come onto their toe. When they come onto their toe, that tells me that all their weight is on the front foot. But when they stay on the ball of their foot like so, that tells me that their weight is still all on this back foot. And they're nice and on balance. And that is how you throw the cross. Of course, everything in boxing takes hours and hours and hours of practice, drilling over and over again. When I was being taught how to throw the backhand properly, I went over it thousands and thousands of times before I got it to how it is now. So that's something you need to take into account when you're learning boxing. The next punch we're going to cover is the left hook. This is the third most used punch, I would say, in boxing, coming after the jab and the cross. When we're throwing the left hook, it can be thrown from 3 different ranges. You've got long range, like so, mid-range, and short range. You'll notice that I angle my wrist a different amount depending on the range that I'm throwing the left hook. When I'm throwing at long range, I'm turning my knuckle over. The reason for this is the old way in amateur boxing. They had to make sure that they were landing on the knuckles because a lot of people were slapping. So that's why they put the white circle on there. When you're throwing a long range hook, there's no way you're going to get the knuckles on there if you angle your wrist the same way as if it was a short range. Of course, it depends on the angle of your opponent, because the angle of your opponent, say they're over there, you will be able to catch them with a long range. But if they're directly in front of you, you're going to have to turn your knuckle over, like so. So you turn your knuckle over, landed on that first knuckle, limiting the surface area, increasing the damage. Then we've got mid-range. Mid-range, you're just going to turn it so your knuckles are flat like that, horizontally. And then close range, you can come in like this. Mid-range, long range. When throwing the left hook, when learning the left hook, I like to teach it by dropping your arm completely relaxed like so, keeping your weight on the back foot, and then just rotating your hips. When you rotate your hips like this, you're just swinging your arm like so. I know it looks a bit stupid, but you're trying to keep your arm completely relaxed. And then you can throw it from here. All you're doing is you're drawing a little C and it's coming back. Rotate. Like so. Making sure I'm keeping this hand up, and I'm making sure that this shoulder is coming right up to my chin. And I'm keeping my elbow high and I'm landed on that knuckle. Think about the rotation of the hips. A lot of coaches teach the pivot on the front foot. So throw it and I'll pivot like this. I believe this is more down to personal preference, but I notice in some of my fights when I land a nice left hook that I do indeed pivot on my front foot. However, when you're throwing a left hook to the body, this foot wants to stay solid, planted in the ground like so. But we'll cover that when we get to that punch. The lead hook, for me personally, is by far my favourite and most dangerous weapon. I can't even think of the amount of times where I've landed a left hook and it's done significant damage, much more than all of my other shots. I don't know why it is, but you see the same pattern with the likes of Ryan Garcia. He always throws a left hook and that's his weapon.
Quick, lightning fast hook from Garcia.
When it comes to the angle of your wrist and when you're trying to land on this knuckle, I find that it's much more effective when you want to double up or triple up left hooks to keep your palm facing you. It's much faster to like recoil your shoulder when it's facing you like this as opposed to like that. Much harder to do it like that when it's facing you. So if you want to throw multiple left hooks, then have your palm facing you. But if you want to land those like nice long range Soviet style left hooks, then make sure you're turning that knuckle over. When it comes to working on the inside, doubling up that left hook and going to the body is brilliant. Nice, tucked up. Keeping that palm towards you. Going to the body. Mixing it up. It's a great shot to throw on the inside as well. In this lesson, we're going to teach the rear hook. Obviously, the right hook if you're orthodox or the left hook if you're southpaw. All you're doing is lifting the arm into this position and then just rotating the body. So it goes from here into position, rotating the body. And you can come obviously long range Same concept as a left hook. I'm turning my knuckle over. Mid-range, I'm going with my palm facing downwards. And then short range, my palm's facing me. All you're doing with the rear hook is you're lifting your arm into this position and you're turning. The reason for this is a lot of the time when throwing the rear hook, you put yourself in quite a vulnerable position because it's quite a long shot to land because it's coming from the backhand and it's coming in a circular motion. You don't want to bring the hand into position out here. You want to bring it like roughly 45 degrees out in front of you, and then you're just rotating the body. Like so, mid-range and short range. Same as always, we're bringing the elbow high to the same height as our wrist. We're not going to have it down here like this. We're bringing the shoulder up to our chin, keeping our chin tucked, defending any shots coming from this side. And we're focusing on keeping the weight on the back foot. We're not coming forward off balance and rotating the hips. Like so. And that is how you throw the rear hook. In this lesson, we're going to cover the lead uppercut. Now, this is one of the harder, more advanced shots to throw. I'd probably say it's the last punch you teach a novice boxer. And that's because you're throwing a shot which is going directly upwards from using the horizontal rotation of your hips. So you're combining that horizontal rotation with a vertical punch from the lead hand. Much harder than the rear hand because it sort of just comes off that back foot a bit easier. But that lead uppercut, you're combining that horizontal rotation with a vertical punch. Can't stress the importance of keeping this arm relaxed until impact. All we're doing is we're going from our guard position and we're just dropping the hand so it's relaxed, like gravity's taking it, and then it's coming off the rotation of our body. So we're dropping like so. Obviously this is a long range lead hook. I'm angling my knuckle so it lands right on the knuckle, causing as much damage as possible. Keeping my right hand up, bringing my left shoulder to my chin, and then following with the elbow. Then, of course, we've got medium and short range. Medium, we're bringing it a little bit more, our palm a little bit more angled towards me. And then we've got short range. All we're doing, when I throw a short range lead uppercut, I just think about bouncing my elbow off my stomach. So I'm just dropping it there. And you're going to use this shot when you're right up close range. Your gloves are basically touching your opponents and you're just trying to dig in that shot, lifting their head up and then scoring a point. It's a very eye-catching punch. The lead uppercut, when thrown with correct technique and good power, can be a devastating punch.
To try to get a matchup with
Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem, that knockout is a great example of this. It was just came off the horizontal rotation of his hips and flew straight up and knocked Alistair's chin into a different solar system. So lots of different variations of the lead uppercut. An honourable mention is Donovan Razor Ruddock's smash punch. And this was sort of like a screw shot uppercut. He used to throw it sort of like that. It's a variation of the lead uppercut. So there's lots of variations of every punch. There's shovel hooks, there's different types of hooks, different types of uppercuts. But we're going to cover that at the end of this module. So that's how you throw the lead uppercut. The rear uppercut is a brilliant punch to be thrown at any range, whether it's a long range bolo uppercut, where it looks like you're bowling a cricket ball, or it's a nice short range tucked up on the inside little dig knocking the head up. When it comes to throwing the uppercut, the same things apply as all the other punches. Nice relaxed hand, nice relaxed arm. All you're doing is you're letting gravity take your arm, letting gravity drop your arm, like so. And all you're doing is you're catching it and rotating the hips. As you rotate the hips, you bring it up. When you bring it up and when you're landing on impact, you're trying to turn your palm so it's facing you. You're trying to get those knuckles on, kinking that wrist again, as always. How I like to think of this is you're drawing a C. Of course, this applies to all different ranges, but you're going to be telegraphing a bolo uppercut much more than you're going to be telegraphing a short range, tucked up one. And the reason for this is because you need to drop your hand further to get a longer range. But the more you can relax your arm and use that rotation to whip it up, the less likely your opponent is to see it coming. When we're on the inside then, all we're doing is a nice tight guard and we're just dropping till that elbow touches our stomach. Then we're just rotating. Same rules apply as always, keeping the weight on the back foot, keeping our back leg bent, coiled, and rotating our hips. And that's how you throw a rear uppercut. If you're an orthodox fighter, the left hook to the body is probably the most dangerous punch you can possibly throw. And the reason for this is because it will hit the liver, which is the weakest spot in the human body. If you've ever taken a liver shot, you'll know it is debilitating. It basically switches off your legs and you just have no option other than just crumble to the floor. The way you're going to be able to land this is not by the typical loading up this lead foot and then popping up like that. That's too telegraphed, and that's how basically everyone teaches the lead hook to the body. But the best way to throw the lead hook to the body without telegraphing it is by keeping your body straight up like so. And all you're doing is rotating and just dropping this hand down and placing it there. Like so. As opposed to coming off the centre line, loading up this lead leg and going like so, like that. The only times that you should be taking your head off the centre line and then throwing the lead hook to the body is when you're slipping outside of your opponent's backhand. When you're slipping outside of your opponent's backhand, then yes, take your head off the centre line and throw the lead hook with their right hands over your head, like so. But if you're just attacking your opponent and say you're throwing a 1-2 lead hook to the body, you want to try keep. It's like you've got a string running through the centre of your body and pulled out the top of your head. And all you can do is rotate on this string like so. You're rotating, dropping the arm, and then catching them right in the liver. It will usually be just outside of their elbow, or if their elbow's out here, then come in a little bit tighter, more like an uppercut. And it's not about the power you put in this shot. It's about your opponent not seeing it coming, not being able to tense their core and brace, stopping the damage from your lead hook to the body. So it's all about disguising that punch and getting it nice and accurate. When you go to throw the lead hook to the body and you're keeping your body nice and vertical without leaning, of course you'll need to trigger some sort of rotation because you can't get any rotation from this point here. You got no rotation from there. So you'll usually throw the lead hook to the body off the backhand because I'm now in the right position to rotate back this way and throw the lead hook to the body. If you don't want to throw the backhand, then all you got to do is just rotate and then throw it. Rotate a little bit this way and throw it. A great combination to land the lead hook to the body is tap the jab upstairs, lean and throw it. Like so. And that's how you throw the lead hook to the body. The rear hook to the body, unlike the lead hook to the body, is actually a lot easier to land because, especially if you're an orthodox fighter fighting an orthodox fighter, or you're a southpaw fighter fighting a southpaw fighter. And that's because the front of your opponent's body is much closer to your right hand. So you'll be able to just drop in and throw it from a shorter distance away, if you like. Same principles always apply. Weight on the back foot. Same as the lead hook to the body. All you're doing is you're dropping the hand to here and you're just rotating. I'm maintaining the weight on my back foot. Just like the cross, I'm just pivoting on this back, on the ball of my back foot. And all I'm doing is just dropping the arm, letting gravity take my arm to the right position and then turning it. Same orientation of the wrist as throwing the lead hook to the body. I've got my palm facing up, facing me. And that's going to allow me to kink my wrists and dig my knuckles and cause some damage. This side of the body is the spleen, and it's not going to do anywhere near as much damage as the liver. However, when you throw the rear hook to the body, sometimes you might come up the middle a bit more. If you come up the middle a bit more, there's this part called the solar plexus, which is also another weak spot. I can feel it now just from slightly pressing where my rib cage parts. I can feel the wind trying to be pushed out of my body. So whether you're coming round the outside of their elbow to land that right hook, or you're coming up through the middle, this is a great punch, an easy punch to land. It's also a great punch to make your opponent think. I'll give you an example. When I was sparring this one time, a guy who's a little bit more experienced than me, I could see he was trying to land the overhand right. And he was doing this by jabbing, throwing that right hook to the body. He'd do it 3 times and he's setting what's called a pattern. And once he did this and he'd got me blocking it with my elbow, he'd then jab and throw the right hook to the head, leave in. And because I was trying to block his right hook to the body, he'd be able to land that right hook to the head. However, I knew what he was doing, so I just tucked up. Right hook to the body, again, close range, just dropping it nice and short like that. Mid-range, and then long range. I see a lot in amateur boxing, a boxer will often take his foot to the side and then drop his head off the centre line and try to land it nice and long range like so. And that's a great shot to whip in. Usually can go over your opponent's straight punches coming forward. And that is how you throw the right hook to the body. Same principle as most of the other punches. Pretty much exactly the same as the left hook, except with the right hand or the rear hand if you're southpaw. In this lesson, we're going to cover some more uncommon, unique types of punches that don't follow the general jab, cross, left hook. They can be variations of, but they are not the exact technique. For example, we've got the shovel hook. It's called the shovel hook because it imitates shoveling snow. And it's essentially a mix between an uppercut and a hook. So if you think a hook is at like a 90-degree angle, if you will, a uppercut is at a 0-degree angle, we're going to go 45 degrees. And that is your shovel hooks. And they can be to the head, or they can be to the body, lead or rear. The reason I'm not categorizing this as a lead hook to the body or a rear hook to the body is because you can throw it to the head. And a great example of this is Donovan Razor Ruddock. He uses this shovel hook brilliantly. It's actually a combination of a shovel hook and a screw shot, which we're going to cover next. It's sort of just from that angle, or from any angle really, he can throw this punch. And I think that's a brilliant skill to have if you're a bit more advanced in boxing. The next punch, as I said, that we're going to cover is the screw shot. Now, it's similar to a straight punch, like a straight right hand, except instead of turning the knuckle over like this, we're going to turn the knuckle under and we're going to come up like that, like a really long range uppercut. And the left And that's great for like getting between a guard, because sometimes you don't have to turn it all the way. You can sort of just place your fist like this, and this is more likely to get between people when they got a nice tight guard. So dropping and coming up like so, rotating that arm, and that's how you throw a screw shot. The third and final punch we're going to cover is the overhand right. Now, the reason why I'm saying it's more of one of these uncommon types of punch is because it's not how we describe the right hook. The right hook, we're just bringing the arm into position and we're just rotating the body. Whereas the overhand right is a bit more of a pub brawler swing, but we're aiming to stay on balance. So we're keeping that weight on the back foot. And all we're going to do is, instead of bringing that hand to here, we're going to throw it more over. And we do that by transferring the weight from this foot to this foot, but we're staying on balance. We're not going to go, if we miss it, we're not going to fall over, is what I'm saying. So bring the hand nice and high, and we're taking our head off the center line. You would typically use this when you've got someone on the ropes and you can see that they're about to break to your right. If they're breaking to your right, then you want to catch them right on the knuckle as they're moving that way. Same as the overhand left, but of course that's more of just a left hook because they're breaking to your left. You catch them going that way. But we'll discuss more of this when it comes to ring craft and cutting off the ring. So that is the unique punch lesson. Hope you enjoyed this module. This is the foundations of punching. And to get all of these things right and do them all properly, it's going to take hours and hours and hours of drilling over and over again. No matter how high level of a boxer you are, you'll always need to practice these fundamentals of punching properly because they are the key to becoming a good boxer.